Hey hackers, welcome to another episode of the HackerNoon Podcast. I'm really excited to launch a new series that we are running, Learning Crypto with Amy, where I ask all of the dumb questions to the crypto experts. Because as the name suggests, I did not learn anything about crypto in 2017, so here we go. This HackerNoon episode is sponsored by Bybit, the cryptocurrency trading platform that takes buying, selling, trading, and earning crypto to the next level. So visit bybit.com to learn more.
HackerNoon Podcast.
So, 10 months ago, I got super lucky. I started working at HackerNoon as an editor. And mind you, HackerNoon obviously has a lot of content on software development, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. And I considered myself lucky to be hired because I don't know anything about that. Instead, I had focused on the business tech aspect of things and cybersecurity and that kind and data integrity. But to me, still 10 months later, crypto is escaping my brain. It is confusing me. I don't understand. There's so many layers and aspects to it. And so I have decided, along with Utsav, who is the resident HackerNoon blockchain editor, to start a series for the podcast on learning cryptocurrency. So everyone, welcome to Amy Learns Crypto, presented by HackerNoon and hosted by me, Amy Tom, in conjunction with Utsav. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for not using the word experts. Like, we all hate the word experts because we are all learning, and it has been a fun journey. And hopefully, like, together, we will all learn something new about cryptocurrencies and blockchain as the world is. Thank you
Okay,
for having
that's
me.
great.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anything, okay? Like, we need to start from the very beginning. Like, even pre-2017, in the whole, like, cryptocurrency, like, movement and era, we gotta go even, like, way before that. And I need to know why we even use money. Like, let's start from the very beginning, Adzav. What even is money?
Right. So there are jokes on like Twitter where how do you identify someone who trades crypto or like buys Bitcoin? So the usual like suspect thing is you ask them, so what exactly is money? They whip out their markers and a chalkboard and say, I'm so glad you asked. Like, this is the question that I prepared for. Like,
Excellent.
what exactly is money? So let's go back thousands of years, right? The dinosaurs had just gone away, maybe taken away by God if you are a creationist, or via the asteroids if you believe the scientists. So what happened was when humans started to settle and they had these like settlers, agriculturers, foragers, or whatnot instead of the hunter-gatherers. So when we started living in villages, we needed to exchange value. Now imagine, I'm so sorry I can't see that Nicolas Cage like poster behind you. So, so imagine if I was like, hey, I really want that poster from you,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I get it from you? Imagine that there is no money. Money is basically how people exchange value. So you would say, okay, I would sell that to you for, let's say, Y amounts of dollars because we have money now. But
Mm-hmm.
thousands of years ago, there used to be this requirement called a double coincidence of wants. I needed to have something that you wanted for us to enter into a trade. Let's say you would say, hey, I like your like design that your wife did. And
Mm-hmm.
if you could give that to me, I could give you that particular poster.
Mm.
This is what is called
Okay. So, like, it's off. If you want my Nicolas Cage poster, you're gonna have to give me 5 goats.
yeah, exactly. I needed to have five goats. And if not, I would have to find somebody who had five ghosts, like goats, not ghosts,
Oh,
right?
and then
And
trade
hopefully,
them, and then
yeah,
trade me. Okay, yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that was the reason, like, that was what was called the barter system. You could
Mm-hmm.
barter, but there used to be this requirement called a double coincidence of odds.
Mm-hmm.
But then
And
when we
the
start,
perception of value is individual, right?
yeah, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder is what people would have said about money back in the day, right?
Okay.
More egalitarian people, not like today. So
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Following.
Yeah. So coming back, so now when people started to build their kingdoms, like we started as individual foragers and then we became colonies, kingdoms, or whatnot. And when these became large enough, they were like, let's issue our own coin. Just as these 2017 ICOs, let's issue our own coin. They issued their own coins. The problem was standardization. If you are based out of Canada or the Canadian settlers community 2000 years ago, or like however years ago, and I'm in India 2000 years ago, your gold coin would be very different from my gold coin. How do I know the purity of your gold coin? How do you know whether my gold coin is exactly what it's like? Because there is no standardization, there is no exchange of
Mm-hmm.
sorts. We
Mm-hmm.
work on trust, which is why traders had to travel, and which is why traders became the richest like classes back in the day because they traveled all over the world. They took valuable stuff from one place to the other, colonized my entire country because of spices, right? So, right.
Oh
So,
yeah, we're really going back in the day. Okay.
yeah.
Value of
So,
money. Let's go.
yeah. So that's how valuable money became. Like,
Yep.
and that's just like a part of the story. So now when people started to become more globalistic, nations were like, let's stop colonizing and let's start to work in terms of trade. Like, let's call it economic colonization, as some people call it. So now when they had what is called paper money, which was invented in China 2000 years ago, they were like, why do you need to have gold coins? Because gold is scarce and you cannot like easily make, let's say, 20-gram gold coins or 20-ounce gold coins
Mm-hmm.
every time. It could be different. Some parts
Mm-hmm.
get shaved off or whatnot. So they were like, I am the government. I will print a piece of paper and I will say the value of that paper is worth 100 of it, like whatever. This piece of paper, 50 of whatever. So now it became, however powerful that particular country was, the value of their currency became something like that relative
Mm.
to the other countries, which is why we have terms such as dollarization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Okay,
the
but
American, yeah.
then why 2000 years ago did all of the countries not print the currency and they all were worth the same thing?
So 2000 years ago, they did not have the printing press. It was invented in the 1500s by
Okay.
Gutenberg, and the most that everybody published was the Bible because it was the 1500s.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody thought like like let's print money, which they could have, but they were like, let's print about Jesus. It's okay, their choice. So yeah. So which is why like when we started to print money, we realized that we have to make it harder because if you print a note and I print a note and the government prints a note, now we have three pieces whose note reigns supreme. So it
Yeah.
has to be the government note. So they make it very hard for people to make it. Uh, like they add the special inks or dyes or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot
Mm-hmm.
to create it. Special signatures are practically put into that. Coins have a very funny thing. So a coin, at least in India, like let's give the example of a 5 rupee coin. It costs the government 90 paisa, which is like cents to your dollars. So 90 paisa to create a 5 rupee coin, and the rest is government's profit.
Mm-hmm.
4 rupees and 10 paisa. So
Mm-hmm.
every time a government makes a coin, it makes a profit,
Mm-hmm.
a 500, a 600% profit. And whenever a
Oh.
government prints money, it's an infinite amount of profit because they used something that was valued at zero, a piece
Yeah.
of paper, and now it is worth At least in Zimbabwe, they printed $100 trillion note, or was it a $1 trillion note? Like, and imagine the kind of value that you create just because you are the government. So that
Yeah.
is a very small history of money. In
Okay.
2008 was when we heard about the housing crisis. A very
Mm-hmm.
short take on the housing crisis, like at least according to the experts, and I am neither, is that because the banks were gambling with our money,
Mm-hmm.
they had been over leveraged. Like they used very big words like CDOs or leveraged positions, over leveraged positions or whatnot, which basically at its essence is the government was gambling with the money that we had deposited in the banks for safekeeping.
Yes.
And when everybody gambles, everybody loses. Everybody thought as long as the music keeps playing, as long as the next sucker keeps on investing money, the
Mm-hmm.
markets would keep on rising. But when that
Mm-hmm.
last sucker said no, it fell down like a house of cards, to
Mm-hmm.
use the analogy. So in 2008, like this crisis told people that the big banks, and then like the reason why this happened was that the government was, instead of penalizing these big banks, they were like, here, have a few more $1 million, a few more hundreds of millions of dollars, so that you guys don't fail, which is covered very well in this movie called Too Big to Fail.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, okay, thank you for the money. Instead of using that money to pay back the people who lost their entire holdings or whatnot, I'm gonna give hundreds of millions of dollars in bonuses to the executives who gambled with my money, right? And the
No.
government was like, yes, it was Barack Obama's government, and they were like, yes, that's exactly why we give you money for. Although if I were to split hairs, the Fed chair, at least at the US, was the guy who had been there since the Clinton days, Alan Greenspan, and their like own ilk or whatnot. They get these
Okay.
academicians to write all of these reports saying, yes, that was the best course of action. And they get millions of dollars for that. So there is that
Mm-hmm.
vested interest, but I digress. So coming back, all of these like things boiled over because 2008 was when we had the internet. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like the 1970s oil shocks or the 1992 Gulf Wars where nobody
Mm-hmm.
knew what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2008. Media have grown a lot. Everybody was an analyst as they are today. Today, I know about COVID. I'm an expert about Afghanistan. I'm an expert on Twitter and whatnot. So in
Yep.
2008, it was very similar, right?
Yep.
So people were like, okay, this is bad. So one guy, no one knows what his name is, but he went by the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. He wrote this entire white paper, just 8 pages long. People say it's very fun to read, very easy to read. No, it's not. It is highly technical. At least people need to have an above basic understanding of economics to understand what he meant. So what he was
Okay.
basically saying was, why do we even need the banks? We need the banks for just one reason, and that is if I want to send you money, I'm in India, you are based out of Canada. The only role that a bank plays is of the intermediary.
Mm-hmm.
My bank takes money from me, sends it to your bank, and then your bank takes the money from my bank and gives it to you.
Yep.
For this role, banks used to get what is called a spread. A spread is the difference between the interest rate of loaning money and the interest rate of borrowing money.
Mm-hmm.
So they were building off of that. And then because banks were serving as what is called a place where capital used to be parked, some very smart people said, why not gamble with that money? And they started gambling with our money. And this is why, like, where we are. So what he built was a technological solution where the community as a whole, or at least people who chose to like put in the effort, let's use the
Mm-hmm.
word effort now instead of more technical words like proof of work or like whatever, people who were willing to put in the effort and people who were willing to spend something to, let's say, make sure that when I send like money to you, or let's say when I transfer value to you,
Mm-hmm.
that is taken care of in a manner which cannot be tampered with. What do
Yes.
banks do? Is that they say, okay, this is my seal of approval. I have a
Yes.
huge section of people who are experts, and we would take care of the accounting for you.
Yep.
Blockchain, Bitcoin built a technological solution for that accounting. Banks might make mistakes. Bank make zero error mistakes all the time. There are attacks called salami slicing. So basically, whenever the interest rate is in the thousandths of a dollar or millions of a dollar,
Mm-hmm.
people would take that. So when you
Oh.
collect a lot of that, you become a millionaire in a few weeks or so. So
Yeah.
blanks make that mistake all the time. At least we're making that
Oh,
mistake
like the
in a
Office
lot.
Space.
Like the office space, exactly. Like the office space,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Exactly. It's a scam.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So blockchains do not make that mistake.
Mm.
But blockchains are pieces of code. Pieces of code don't have a conscience. Pieces of code don't have a soul. It would do what it has been coded to do. Third party actors can tamper with the code because at the end of the day, it is a piece of code.
Well, who writes the code?
So the code is like maintained by a group of people. It's called the Bitcoin core software. It's freely available. It is open source, and like there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of people simultaneously working on improving that code, trying to make it better, just like HackerNoon's own GitHub account. Like imagine, I'll take the example of Noonies, right? So whenever there is a change that needs to be made to the documentation, what does somebody do? They could either message Tom, or what they could do is go to HackerNoon's GitHub and submit what is called a pull request or a push request. I am not a programmer, so I might be getting these words wrong, but it is one of these two. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, whenever somebody finds a problem or when somebody wants to, let's say, suggest a change to a piece of code, they submit that code to the actual code that exists. And
Mm-hmm.
if it gets accepted by the community and there is this entire voting over there,
Mm.
very democratic in the
Mm-hmm.
sense how we see it from thousands of miles away. I don't know
Okay.
what might be
Okay.
happening
Okay.
inside, but at least from thousands of miles away, it looks very democratic. Every
Okay.
new piece of things that get added to the code, to the piece of software, needs to be voted upon and is highly contested by the people.
Mm-hmm.
There have been cases where some people say, I want to do X, some say, I want to do Y. That is called a fork. So
Mm-hmm.
some people say, I'm going to build my own blockchain. And if you follow Futurama with cocaine and like hookers, but I digress. So
Mm-hmm.
when that fork happens, it's like when two different systems emerge.
Okay. Well, okay. So go. I want to go back to the original question, which is like, what even is money? And before we get into too much about like Bitcoin, because we're gonna do that later on, I want to know like how do we determine the value of money, of whatever the money
Interesting,
is? Mm-hmm.
interesting. So earlier, and according to some, let's say, tinfoil hat people, it used to be backed by gold, at least up till the 70s, up as per the Bretton Woods Agreement, or like up until the Bretton Woods Agreement, which was done by the WTOs of the world, like UN bodies. Not
Mm-hmm.
exactly UN body, but called a specialized agency of the UN. So what they said was, however much gold you have, you could print as many notes. And we would link a lot of that to the US dollar. So now the demand for the US dollar went through the roof. There was,
Mm.
and I guess there still is, a lot more US dollar notes outside of US than in the US.
Yes.
A lot of them are in Chinese vaults right now, or at least via Chinese vaults into the African markets. But that was the reason, or like that was how they were valuing their own particular currencies. Somewhere
By
down the
the
line,
amount of gold that they had at the time whenever they decided. So that's why America became like a big country because at the time they had the most gold. Is that what you're saying?
America had a geopolitical advantage. So, like, they don't have enemies on their border, right?
Mm,
On their top is Canada. They apologize for everything. On their
it's
south is
true.
Mexico, right? Like, Mexico used to be huge. There were wars in between the Mexico and the US in the 1800s. But, anyways, like, it has settled disputes with all of its neighbors, and it's very separated from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
The Pacific Ocean on one side and the Atlantic Ocean on the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of the largest oceans of the world. So geostrategically, they are very well located. When World War One
Mm,
happened, nobody attacked America. They were busy fighting amongst themselves. At
mm-hmm.
the fag end of the war, Woodrow Wilson, the U.S. president,
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Hey guys, could you stop fighting?" And they were like, "Nah." And then he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna send money and bomb all of you," because they had nothing to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
they did not have money. They were founded on very strong democratic principles. You have to give the
Mm-hmm.
Americans that. And that is why like they became very powerful at the end of World War One. Before that, the superpowers were England and France. They
Mm.
were gone. By
Okay.
World War Two, the hegemony of like Europe had practically ended. The US had to bail them
Mm.
out under the Marshall Plan. But so like yeah, that was into like why the US became powerful. And that was a
Oh.
reason why everybody was like, okay, we would like have a certain amount of gold in our vaults and the
Mm-hmm.
value of that gold, because now how do you value gold? Like there is that question also. Like gold is something like whose value does not come printed on top of the gold nugget.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to value it. And so they basically tagged it to the US dollar. But now the demand for the dollar started to outstrip the supply. And people were like, okay, we are going to have what is called a free float. The earlier thing was what is called a managed float, which is basically I will peg my currency to yours. Even as of like today, uh, one US dollar is equal to 3.5 or 3.7 Saudi riyals. So Saudi Arabia's currency is
Oh.
a fixed like peg
Oh.
to that of the US. Still is.
Forever? There's no exchange rate?
The exchange rate is 3.5 or 3.7. Like you
Ooh.
Google it, like it would say the same today, tomorrow, last week, last one,
Okay. Okay.
right? Yeah. So that is what is called a fixed exchange rate.
Mm-hmm.
What we have in the rest of the world, like at
Yeah.
least between the
Free
US and the
flow.
Canadian. Yeah. That is what is called a free float.
A
So that
float.
is how this, yeah.
Okay.
So that is how exchange rates are determined, and which is why when Zimbabwe starts to fall, they cannot say that my currency is worth 500 US dollars. It has to be according to the demand within the market itself,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Interesting.
that is how that works.
Okay. So, okay, I really feel like I have a better picture of like the political standpoints and like the economic standpoints of the world, why money is the way that it is today, why there's some rich countries, why there's some poor countries. Okay, piecing all the pieces together. This has been an excellent start to Amy Learns Crypto. I have already learned so much, and next time we're gonna get more into blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of the things that I don't really understand and I'm just pretending. So amazing. Thank you very much, Utsav. I had the best time today. I'm so excited to learn the rest of crypto. I'm just gonna be all of it. It's gonna all be in my brain, and it's gonna be amazing. You know,
Most
one thing
definitely.
I will say is at the end of this series, my personal goal is to invest in some crypto. Okay?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I don't have a wallet, I don't have anything, and we're gonna go through all of it. And I am very excited. So all of the other crypto little babies out there, please join me. We're gonna get through this together. It's okay. I'll hold your hand and be here for you. I'm in the same boat. I don't get it either. It's gonna be fine.
So well, yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. This episode, of course, was hosted by me, Amy Tom, produced by HackerNoon, and edited by Amy and Alex. And I'll see you on the internet. Stay weird. Bye bye.
Stay weird, everybody. Bye.